For the first time, new Michigan offensive coordinator Jason Beck opened up about what we can expect to see. We'll discuss more about what he said on the In the Trenches podcast right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday. We're back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Thank you to all of our everydayers who watch or listen to the show every single day. Also, a big thank you for making us your first listen. First, we're going to get into Beck's comments on the In the Trenches podcast about the offense as a whole. Then we'll get more specific about what he said about Bryce Underwood, and then we'll distill more about the overall direction of that side of the ball entirely. So a lot to get to. Still very under the weather, but we're trudging through. So that's where we're at. All right, I just had to reset the teleprompter so that I can read this. And it's a finicky animal. But let's get into this here. So here's what I had to say first, just about like the idea of what the offense will look like. Now, keep in mind, Kyle Whittingham was asked by Alejandro in the post press conference scrum, right? Like, I'm just giving credit to the question, because my question was about, I think it was about Urban Meyer. I don't remember what my question was in the scrum. I had one. I asked him a question. I don't know. That was a long time ago. Different life. But Alejandro, nonetheless, I'm just getting into things that don't matter. Alejandro asked about, like, what's this offense going to be? And Whittingham said, oh, it's going to be 11 personnel. Well, I even in that post, the show that I did with Tom afterwards, one of the things I said is, like, listen, he said 11 personnel, but like, it kind of feels like it's going to, like, we're going to look at what we got and figure out how to make that work the best that we can, rather than kind of like the Rich Rod type of thing of like, we're going to run spread and it doesn't matter if it's Nick Sheridan and Steven Threet, right? Like, so like that became a disaster. I love though what Jason Beck had to say here, because it kind of takes what I said in that moment after that introductory press conference and pushes it another step further. So here's what he had to say. We want to install kind of a base of what we're going to do, what we've had success with, what's been good for us. But, now that's key, but we're very much driven by the personnel. And so we'll adapt to the offense, to the people we have and what they do well. So we'll be versatile that way. So the personnel, will we be more 12, more 11, more 10? That will be totally driven by the players in the program and who gives you the best chance to score points to win games. But a lot of it is driven by the quarterback, what the quarterbacks do well, and what we want to build the offense to his strengths and his talents. So that can look different based off of who the quarterback is and what they do well. After that, we want to look at the O-line. What can the O-line do? Because there's no sense in doing stuff if the O-line can't block it up at a high level. So we look at what the O-line can do. And then after that, it's all the skill guys we're putting out there with them. So it's molding the offense to that. So at first it's kind of put in the base stuff, evaluate, see who's emerging, see what guys are really doing well, and then start building the offense towards those strengths and those capabilities. I love it. I absolutely love it. Now I understand, like, especially like where things had been for Michigan, with Sherrone Moore having been there for a while under Jim Harbaugh and all of that. Like, you've essentially recruited to the idea of what you're capable of. But yet, even then, it just didn't always feel like they were always putting guys in the best position to succeed all the time. More Harbaugh than Sherrone, but like, even then, there were times where you're just kind of like, you scratch your head. And with Sherrone, it was definitely like go into a shell. Like he said after that Ohio State game this last year, like, oh, we busted off that long run, and after that, we kind of changed the game plan. Like, what? Like, you understand you have more than like one injured running back that you can do things with, right? Like, and I think that what you're hearing here is a guy like Jason Beck is going to take a look at what he's got and say, like, all right, who's the quarterback number one? And, like that, obviously, like the idea is to go with Bryce. But like, let's say Bryce isn't in for whatever reason, right? Like injury or illness or, what have you. So now you got to go with Braden Fowler, Nicolosi. What is different about him? What's different about Colin Hurley? What's different about Chase Herbstreit or Tommy Carr, Brady Smigel? Yeah, I just named all the quarterbacks. There we go. But, what is different about those guys? Okay, so now how do we run the system? Right? Like, this is the opposite of, like I said, the Rich Rod thing of like, all right, we want to run spread. So how do we do that? All right, well, we got to do it this way. And we need a running quarterback to run this. Who's our quarterback? Steven 3. All right, let's do it. Like, that's just dumb. And on the other end, you kind of had the same thing with Brady Hoke, a little bit less with Denard Robinson. But then when it's like Brady Hoke and Devin Gardner, it's like, we got a versatile dual threat guy. What should we do with him? Let's force him to be a drop back passer with the worst offensive line in Michigan history. You look at that and you say, I don't understand how that can even ever happen. But that ends up being the case. So I think that already is in a good dynamic and direction. That Jason Beck looks at it and says, we start with our quarterback. Then we figure out, so what can our quarterback do? Then what is our offensive line capable of doing? And then what can the skill players do? He didn't stop there, though. So we've got plenty more to get to here. So he was asked then about like running the football. And he said, well, you have to be able to run the ball and be physical and attack, be able to attack teams that way. So having said that, now you want to be able to throw it and to be balanced, be dynamic, really attack teams. And so that thing will have been flow. But I've been a part of we really throw the football at a high level. And then this last year we were running it at a real high level and just throwing it efficiently enough so that it'll kind of play out as the players and the personnel kind of show what they're capable of and how we build this thing. But there's no doubt it's always going to start with being physical, be able to run the ball, because anytime you can outrush the other team, you've got a great chance to win the game. So now you've got to be balanced enough and dynamic enough doing both, but you got to be physical to be able to run the football. Okay, so like already fits the Michigan DNA, number one. That's right. Like, but also understanding like this is the thing that I don't feel like the previous coaching staff understood. Now I understand you have to be able to develop Bryce Underwood, which they did not really do. We'll talk more about that in segment 2 here. But I think that understanding, like, we've got high-level running backs, but we also have a high-profile quarterback that can actually throw the football. I know rival fans will disagree with that, but, like, they didn't exactly put Bryce in a very good position to succeed either, the previous coaching staff. So now you're at least looking at a scenario where you've got an offensive coordinator that's looking at, okay, here's what we have. So we can do this and we can do this. And I liked that he kind of brought up that last year at Utah, it was mostly a running team, even though like Devin Dampier did a really good job passing for him at New Mexico, but recognizing like we are better at running the football than we are throwing it. But like also understanding like if we have the ability to throw it, we can do that. And also have a balance and dynamism and all of those things. So I think that's all extremely exciting. And I think there's a lot to really like about what he's saying here. So that said, let's talk more about Bryce Underwood and what he had to say there, because that's also important. And then we'll just kind of get into my general thoughts on all of that in the end here. In the end, it doesn't really matter. Sorry, Lincoln Park. All right, we're going to do that here in just a moment.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Number 1 ranked UConn dominated Tennessee 96-66, turning a halftime tie into a historic win and avenging last season's loss by delivering the largest margin in the rivalry's history. AZ Fudd had 27 points and Sarah Strong added 26 as the Huskies remain perfect on the season, reminding everyone why they are the reigning national champions. In the Big Ten, number 2 UCLA rolled past number 8 Iowa 88-65, powered by 22 points from Angela Dukelich and a huge advantage in the paint, staking their claim as a national threat. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
All right. Thank you so much for making us your first listen, even when we are late. Like, as it comes to, it's a challenge when you're under the weather, but we're still getting it done. At least we're trying to. But we appreciate it when you make us your first listen. But now is the time to dig in deeper, go ad free, but even more so, get in the private Discord. I'm talking about the Everydayer Club. It's $5 a month or $50 a year. If you have questions that I'm not going to answer in the mailbag, you know that it's going to require a little bit more discretion from me. That's what the Discord's for. You can get in there. You can chat with me. You can chat with other Locked On Wolverines listeners. It's become an amazing community. So I highly recommend that you do that. Check out Locked On Wolverines at supercast.com. Do I have that right? Why am I doubting myself? Or check the show notes to learn more. I think that's right. I don't have it written down here in where I'm at. Anyway. All right, this is what Jason Beck had to say about Bryce Underwood. So when I watched the film, man, he's a big, athletic, impressive player. Has a big arm and it has a nice, just like presence about him. And to play at this level as a freshman, a true freshman, is really hard. That is really challenging for anybody. And so, like you said, year one to year two, and I should say first year starting for a guy to second year starting, guys take a jump just from the experience. Just from being through the ups and downs, the game slowing down, just the improvement that they make. You make a jump from your first year as a starter to year two. Now, not many kids are starting as a freshman. And so that kind of all right, now this is not working. Kind of even, can we see it? Adds to it a little bit more to be able to come in and play as a freshman is really challenging. But there's no doubt he'll take a jump year two, having all that experience under his belt and all the things that he's learned. I think that's exciting. Now he did go further. I didn't put this in the teleprompter, but we'll go back and look at it here. He did go a little bit further on just the idea of watching the film and understanding like what you do here, as far as you kind of see what a quarterback's thinking about how they're moving, what their feet look like in the pocket, it's a mental part of the position, yada, yada, yada. Okay, cool. Number one, I think it's great to have a former quarterback as your offensive coordinator, former quarterback as your QB coach, all that kind of stuff, right? That's huge. By the way, another beverage recommendation. My last one was so fire you couldn't find it in stores. I have a stash of like half. I'm demurring real quick. Dr. Pepper, strawberries and cream, 0 sugar. This is free advertisement, but just don't make it so popular that I can't get it anymore. That's all I ask. That's the next new hotness when it comes to beverages. I digress. So I think that is already just big, that you've got people that understand the quarterback position a bit more than what they had. Now, I'm not even railing against Chip Lindsey, who we all agree at this point, which again, my own mea culpa, because I disagreed with this before and then I was just wrong, that he was being handcuffed by Sherrone Moore. I think you're going to see that by what he does at Mizzou. And you can see that even just by how quickly he was snatched up by Eli Drinkwitz, right? So I think just having people who are smart enough to kind of come into the room and look and say, like, here's how we're going to look at it and evaluate it and what we're going to do with it, I think is already just leaps and bounds better. Because I'm not saying the previous staff was fully dumb, but sometimes I think that they thought they were smarter than they were. And that goes back to 2024 as well, is just like this kind of, we're so unbelievably smart. You guys have no idea how smart we are. We're so smart. You don't even, it's almost like hipstery, right? Like, yeah, like you don't get it. You're watching it. You don't get it. Oh man, I can't believe you don't get it. You don't understand what we're doing. Okay. Well, I guess you just don't get it, I feel like you're just going to see a massive improvement here. And again, at least like it's still staying on the same train of one of the things that has been a tenet of this show since its inception of you get better at football by playing football. You make the biggest jump from year one to year two, right? That was originated here too. Like, because Jim Harbaugh's thing was you get better from week 1 to week 2. And then I asked him very specifically, like, you always say week 1 to week 2. What about year 1 to year 2? So that's been a tenet of this show since the beginning. So I'm excited about hearing just the idea of like, number one, we know what we've got. Number two, like we know how to fix the ills, you know, to make this guy better. Number three, we think you're going to see a massive jump. So you take all of that, you combine that with just like the way he talked about offense in general, talked about the idea of matching it to the personnel. Like, yeah, we've got things like that we want to do. Like we know that we want to do this, but we have to make sure that we have the capability due to who we have. And so what we're going to do is try to marry those things. And it starts with the quarterback. And then it goes to the offensive line and then the skill position, like just the fact that he's laying things out that way, like excites me. It impresses me because it feels very clinical and methodical, and the way that like a professional would approach something like this, right? Like I think that is a massive thing just for him to be able to diagnose that and just say like, here's the order of operations, right? Like it's an equation, right? Like you have to solve the equation with a certain order of operations. And Jason Beck clearly knows how to do that. Whereas I'm not putting it on Chip Lindsey, but we can pile on Sherrone Moore all we want. So we're going to do that. But, you know, like, I just don't feel like he had that order of operations. Again, it was very much like if you're not in the knowing club, the in club here, then you just don't get it. Now you just don't like, you're just whatever. So I think it's really exciting just to see a staff that, number one, knows what it's doing and B, appreciates what it has. So what does it mean for this group? Well, sky's the limit. And we'll get to more about why here in just a moment. But before we do, tax season, come on, move up. There you go. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever just to hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle absolutely everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver. It gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, we've got plenty more to get to, and we're going to do that here in just a moment. Before we do, it's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff. Well, we need a drink here. Amazon person is here. I can tell by Zuri barking. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're in the middle of all of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, Seahawks, I mean, come on, riding with the underdog or building one last same game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's a perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. So if you're a new customer, just bet $5 and you can get $200 in bonus bets if you win. So make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season's done. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It's completely about to lose my voice. That was crazy timing. Like, quick pause to take a drink. Zuri barks. We're hydrating more on the show, and it's not real hydration. It's pop, but it's just to keep the throat lubricated, so I'm not sitting here coughing all live long day. All right, so I think that when you look at the way Jason Beck presented everything, it is just absolute, like I said, it's coherent and it's competent. I didn't know that we were begging for coherent and competent and that we'd be there so quickly. Just a couple years after winning a national championship, after the guy who was like, because when you hear Sherrone, if you like went back and if you ever heard him talk about the final offensive drive in the fourth quarter against Alabama, like you could hear a rhyme and a reason, and you could feel like a sense of competence there. So I'm not really sure why that didn't translate. Well, extracurriculars, I guess. But like, this is just, it's a different level of, this guy seems to get it. Like Whittingham, Jason Beck. I mean, I'm excited to hear from Jay Hill and all. Like, these are people that just seem to like understand more of what they're doing. And as much as Sherrone talked about, like, yeah, we, put our players in a position to succeed. I mean, Josh Gaddis used to say that all the time. And then it just seems like they don't do it, right? Like, we've got Donovan McCulley and Andrew Marsh. What should we do? Let's not throw it to him. Let's not even throw it to Andrew Marsh in the Ohio State game. That's a great idea. Smart. One of your best players. Just don't even, like, that is akin. I mean, it's not the same, but it's like Ohio State being like, you know what? Let's just not even bother with throwing to Jonathan Smith. Jeremiah Smith. Let's just not even bother. I know it's not an apples to apples comparison, but like, come on. Especially when it was like, Jordan Marshall's hurt. I love Bryson Cosdell, but like, you're not going to beat Ohio State by just basically solely leaning on Bryson Cosdell with inside runs. Like, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So in order to basically cleanse the palate, all you have to have is people that come in and like can speak coherently about what is. And how do you run a football program? Well, you look at the players you got and you look at what you want to do and you find a way to marry those in a way that makes sense. And the way you do that is by starting with who's the quarterback. Sorry, we gotta re-lubricate here. Who's the quarterback? What is he capable of doing? How good is the blocking? And then who are the catchy type guys and who are the runny type guys? It's not rocket science, but it doesn't seem like it always kind of comes together. So at least it's like, it's competence. And I love that. And you've seen like a pretty good track record. I know he doesn't have like a long track record, but it's a good one. So I think that's very key. And like he mentioned, scoring points. I think that should be thought of here, because Utah, well, while we look at what it was last year, okay, total offense, Utah was fourth. That's good. But what's most importantly is when you look at scoring offense, Utah was also fourth, right? Because like Michigan last year, look at this duality, this dichotomy of sorts. Michigan, I'm searching. 59th in total offense. Not terrible, not great, but not terrible. Especially considering last year it was like 117th. In scoring offense, I mean, it wasn't that much further down, but it's 69th. But if you strip away that Central Michigan game, I guarantee it's way lower than that. But it's not like, because it says they were averaging 27.7 points per game. Well, I mean, let's just look real quick. 34, 13, 63, 30, 24, 13, 24, 31, 21. I mean, that 63 is doing some heavy lifting. So just to be clear, real quick, you're right. Just because we don't want to act like it's like, okay, we want to make sure that wasn't the case. That was a consistent thing for Utah last year. 43, 63, yeah, against Cal Poly. 31, only 10 against Texas Tech, but then 48, 42 against Arizona State against the Dillinghams. 21 against BYU, 53 against Colorado, 45 against Cincinnati, 55 against Baylor, 51 against Kansas State. That's a decent team. 31 at Kansas, 44 against Nebraska. I love it. That should work. That'll do. That'll do. And just to kind of add to it real quick, scoring offense the year before. Okay, this isn't gonna make my point for me, but I just want to see New Mexico, 23rd in the country. There you go. That's where Jason Beck was the year before, was New Mexico. So I guess it does make my point for me. So I love what they got, and I think they're in a good position. All right, that's gonna do it for us today. Before I start in a coughing fit, which we're doing a good job. I'm gonna guess not a mailbag tomorrow. Sorry, just trying to, maybe Friday. I don't want to do the long form all of that until we know that I can easily get through a day here. But we'll talk to you tomorrow regardless. See you then. Peace.